Good afternoon. My name is Aluki Kotierk. I'm Nunavut Tunngavik President. I'm very happy to be here this afternoon with all of you. You may have been at the signing of the devolution agreement, and we're really excited that we were able to get to this point. It's taken many, many years, and it's the next big political development for Nunavut. One of the things I'm particularly excited about is the commitment to work on a human resource development strategy that was there was one already done in 2020, and we have commitment to work on one for post-devolution, and I think that's extremely important. It aligns with Article 23 in the Nunavut Agreement to be able to achieve an Inuit employment, a representative workforce at government levels. And so I encourage all Inuit youth in particular, if you have the opportunity to take some training, go for formal education. We will need more Inuit working in land management positions. Koyan namin.
Ja, unnusakun khuviasut yaamanyunga tavani qatagunnaqatta taanna nunavummun pimmartuaqaalumman sivunittinnun pimmartuangumman taanna aqqaagugasartuannun aivagutigiyaaqattarsimayerm tautugaqarlutti nunavummiutain isumaleuqunnaqullugen pimmartuangunninga taanna tautugaqiyauqattarsimanninga nunavummiutaulluta isumaleuqtauqattalarsimagatta ungasittunnun nunavummiutaungittunnun taakkua sivunivun makimagutigigunnattavun pidjutigiddutigum. I too am very honored to be here. What a historic moment we were just able to achieve. I am humbled to be here, to be able to get the historic signing of the devolution agreement. It has been many years in the making with many of the leaders who had that vision of decision-making coming a lot closer to home. And today marks a new beginning where Nunavummiut will make decisions for Nunavut, and what a historic moment. So with that, I am very excited to be here with our friends. I'd like to welcome Prime Minister Justin Trudeau back up here, back up to Nunavut, where we've advanced some major initiatives, but this being a very historic moment where decisions were now rest with us as Nunavummiut. So with that, thank you so much.
Thank you, Aluki. Thank you, PJ. This is indeed a huge day. It's a historic day for Nunavut, but it's a historic day for Canada as well. Nunavut is our most recent territory, created officially only a few decades ago. But the people who live on this land, the Inuit, have lived here and created prosperity and culture and communities and a future for themselves from time immemorial. So the recognition that we have worked on so hard to get to this point, to be able to transfer control over land and resources and culture and the future to the people of Nunavut, to the government of Nunavut and to NTI, is a really big step. It's about reconciliation, but it's also around sovereignty, and it's around people's right to self-determination and building a better future for themselves in a complicated world. This couldn't have happened without the extraordinary leadership, not just of these two leaders right beside me, but of generations of leaders over years, decades, and even generations to get to this point. And I am so proud to be part of it today. C'est un moment important dans l'histoire du Nunavut, mais c'est aussi un moment important dans l'histoire du pays. Du côté du gouvernement fédéral, plusieurs personnes, particulièrement notre ministre Vandal, mais aussi Carolyn Bennett, qui a travaillé très fort là-dessus pendant de longues années, ont été des partenaires essentiels. Mais vraiment, je veux remercier les générations de leaders ici au Nunavut qui ont démontré leur engagement envers un meilleur avenir pour tous les gens qui habitent ce territoire magnifique. It's a great day, it's an important day, but it is still just a further milestone along the path. We have a lot of work to do over the next 3 years as we change our legislations to give full control to the government of Nunavut and NTI over the the land resources and territories, and always we will do it in partnership, and we will be there for the long haul for decades and generations to come to make sure that everyone in the North prospers, particularly Nunavut. It is a real pleasure to be here today, and as you can see from all the dancing, we're all very, very happy about today.
We will now start with the question and answer period. Nous allons maintenant commencer avec les périodes de questions. One question, one follow-up. We will start with questions in the room and then turn it over to Zoom with any remaining time. First question goes to Nunavut News.
Hi there. This question, I guess, is for the Prime Minister and the Premier. This new devolution agreement gives a whole lot of decision-making power to the territory. What would hypothetically happen if a future territorial government is acting in a way that isn't in the interest of the federal government, and I guess vice versa? How would the territorial government respond to a federal government not acting in the territory's best interest?
That's a hypothetical situation. It's not entirely hypothetical because it happens all the time that premiers and the federal government disagree in various provinces and various territories. And we're a mature federation that has mechanisms to work things out, although you see a lot of places around the country where people will vote provincially or territorially in one direction and federally in another direction. Canada's strength is in that we work things out from a multitude of different perspectives. And I think the alternative to being worried about, oh, what if there's a disagreement in the future, is saying, no, 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 Ottawa knows best and is going to continue to know best, so we don't have any difficult conversations. Well, that's not leadership, and that's not what makes Canada strong. Sure, there are going to be points of view that we're going to have to debate, negotiate, and figure out, either the two of us or future people in our roles. But that's part of the strength of this country. And this step we're taking today to recognize that Nunavut deserve to have more control over their lives, their future, their land, their territory, is entirely in keeping with what Canada's all about. PJ.
Yeah, thank you for the question. I think you summarized it really well. We'll continue to have differences. But the beauty of our ability to be able to work together is what brought us here today. We see devolution being the last jurisdiction in Canada without an agreement really trusted other Canadians, and we're as equal Canadians as anybody else. But the beauty of the agreement we do have will now allow us to be able to start making those decisions right here at home. As partners, we'll always have disagreements. This really is our strength as Nunavut. We are founded with Inuit societal values that really ground us to finding our differences and really finding that common interest where we could advance together. But that work really will take time. The next 3 years are really the most critical part of today's big announcements. Really, it's just the beginning of the work that's ahead of us. But we're really ready to roll up our sleeves and start getting to work. It will require a lot of the legislative drafting that's going to be required. And to Aluki's point, it will require a hands-on deck on the human resource strategy to ensure that we set ourselves up for success moving forward. So,
Follow-up?
And as a follow-up for the Prime Minister, there's for sure going to be a federal election within the next year and a half. To what extent is Nunavut a riding that you look at as one you'd want to win back to survive another federal election?
Well, I think Canadians, not just in Nunavut, but right across the country, are going to have a really important choice coming up in the next election. Do we want to continue to fight climate change? Do we want to still continue to look at responsible partnerships, working together to solve big issues? Do we want to continue to work towards reconciliation as an explicit goal and a journey that Canada's on? Those are the kinds of questions people are going to have to ask themselves in the next election, because the Conservative Party under Pierre Poilievre has made it very, very clear that they want to take Canada backwards in all those ways and more. And I look forward to having these conversations with Canadians in Nunavut and right across the country. But for now and for the next year and a half plus, we have a lot of work to do, and we're going to keep rolling up our sleeves and doing it together.
Next question.
Prime Minister Nick Murray from CBC News. Welcome back, sir. Sir, the government of Nunavut has long struggled with capacity issues within its government. The government has pointed to it in the legislature as reasons behind some of its shortcomings, gaps in programs and service delivery. Just last year, the Canada's Auditor General pointed to that as being one of the reasons behind some of the findings in the Family Services Report. This new devolution agreement has in the ballpark of 90 jobs being transferred from the federal government to the government of Nunavut. What happens to this deal if the government of Nunavut isn't able to fill those positions?
Well, devolution is about building capacity in the government of Nunavut so that people here can make decisions that affect their lives, their livelihoods, their future. Nunavut, like any territory, is struggling on certain elements, particularly in this time of global instability, of rising costs of everything, of challenges around housing. There are lots of challenges, but devolution is part of the solution, where we actually work with the government of Nunavut to build that capacity to be able to deliver those programs in the ways that people in Nunavut deserve. Not just high-quality programming, but high-quality programming delivered by people here, from here, and for here. Yes, there's a lot of work to do, but we're here to do it as partners, and I really am looking forward to it.
Just as far as the federal government's involvement, you mentioned you're going to work with the government of Nunavut to make sure that happens. How confident are you that that can happen, particularly if federal government employees don't want to go work for the government of Nunavut?
If I wasn't confident, we wouldn't be here celebrating today. This is an important step in the development of Nunavut, but it's also an important step forward for Canada as we continue to walk a path that, quite frankly, the Northwest Territories and the Yukon Territory have passed path before this. It's exciting to do this, and exciting actually to see the level of leadership and integration of both the territorial government and Indigenous government as well. Working together as partners is a model that, quite frankly, we need to learn from in the South, and I'm really excited about being here today.
Next question.
Hi, Prime Minister. Stephanie Taylor with the Canadian Press. Quebec continues to see a large influx of asylum seekers. Their premier is asking your government to take steps. Despite signing this new Safe Third Country agreement, there is still this problem. So what additional steps, if any, are you prepared to take to reduce this number of asylum seekers?
We have been working closely with Quebec over the past years, as we have with different parts of the country that have experienced a greater than expected influx of asylum seekers. We've transferred millions, hundreds of millions of dollars. We've worked with them on various programs, and we will continue to. I know Minister Leblanc is engaging directly with the Premier on this. We will continue to work with them because it's in all of our interests to make sure that we're doing everything we can together to ensure that our provinces are as successful as possible.
Second question on a different topic. Today, Mr. Netanyahu rejected the idea of Palestinian statehood. Your reaction to that, and what, if any, tangible steps are you willing to take to advance this country's policy of a two-state solution?
I was not surprised to hear Prime Minister Netanyahu share that. That has long been his position. He and I had just a few weeks ago an extensive conversation on exactly this topic and others. Canada's position is crystal clear. We believe the only way forward for the region, indeed the only way forward for a safe and secure Israel, is to have a Palestinian state that is also safe and secure with internationally recognized borders. We believe in a two-state solution. Now, right now, obviously the level of conflict and tensions means it's not for tomorrow. But the things we do today, as we engage in the region, as we work with partners, as we reflect on everything we can do to bring peace and stability to the region, Canada remains deeply committed towards a two-state solution.
Hi, I have two questions for PJ, one question for the Prime Minister and one question for Aluki. Okay, so federal employees that are transferring to GN.
Sorry, who's this question for? PJ?
For you.
Or for me?
You. Yeah, I have
okay.
one question for you. Federal employees who will transfer to the GN will have the same salary, benefit, and staff housing unit for 5 years. What will happen after 5 years?
We have a lot of work to do over the next 3 years to realign legislation, to ensure that we are empowering the people in Nunavut to take on the leadership and responsibilities of governing and delivering services. There's a lot that they've done already. We're going to be doing more, but these are all questions that we will be working out together over the coming years.
If I could add as
Yeah,
well.
go ahead.
Yeah, just with that, I just want to take the opportunity and say thank you to the incredible public service that is there right now, doing the incredible work of managing the resources right here. But I just want to reassure those public servants that we will welcome them. But further to look forward to filling more positions as we're preparing to do this human resource strategy to ensure that it's Nunavut that take on these very important roles. So in the next 3 years, there's going to really be an opportunity for us to be able to start transferring not only the different assets, the different legislations that will be required for us to take on these very important roles, but it's to transfer the biggest asset we have, and that's our people, the public servants that are there, but further the new public servants that will be coming in as well that will implement the devolution as we're taking on these different responsibilities.
I have another question for you, PJ. When will we meet with the Nunavut Inuit and Cree of Iqaluit regarding devolution?
Sorry, I didn't quite get that.
When will you meet with the Nunavut Inuit and the Cree of Iqaluit regarding devolution?
Okay. We understand this is a very historic moment, and as such, we always respect Section 35 of the Constitution, which is consultations with Indigenous groups. Throughout the past few years, in particular, those Indigenous groups have been consulted with our partners, with the federal government during this process. And as such, there have been 13 different groups among the two that you had just mentioned, but there's many other groups that we did consult. And throughout the negotiations, those concerns that were brought forward, there are accommodations that are outlined in the devolution agreement to address some of those concerns that members of the Indigenous organizations have brought forward.
Okay, and I would like to know what option the GN will choose for the resources revenues, option 1 or option 2?
That's a really good question. The devolution agreement does have the resource sharing article in there. We have learned from the different experiences of our different jurisdictions like the NWT and the Yukon. So through that, there are different trigger points where for the first component, there is 100% of royalties that will come to a certain cap, and then beyond that. So there are triggers throughout the agreement, but we're not there yet. Right now, we are focused on building the legislation for us to take and assume these different responsibilities. I very much look forward to when those moments come when there's resource extraction within the lands that we'll start managing, that will make those tough decisions when we get to that point.
Next question.
Hi, Kira Dorad, Nunavut News. This question is for Aluki, actually.
Excellent.
I just wondered how you envisioned the continued governance or governance going forward between the NTI and the GN. And do you feel that there are any concessions that the Government of Canada made that you wanted even greater jurisdiction over, but maybe the feds wouldn't bend any further?
I think in this devolution agreement, we're very pleased that there's a commitment for a joint management committee. It will be set up as a cooperation committee between the government of Nunavut and Nunavut Tunngavik Inc. And I think that will be a space where senior officials from Nunavut Tunngavik Inc. and the regional Inuit associations will be able to meet with senior officials with the government of Nunavut to talk about and work through any concerns or work that's required in terms of legislation or policy development in relation to land management. So I think that's something really positive, and we will start, I guess, implementing once we've got through the transition period.
Next question. Question.
And I guess as a follow-up, what do you consider the biggest advancements in all of this for the Inuit population?
My celebratory moment going through the devolution agreement is Chapter 7 that relates to training and human resource development. I think it's really important. I recognize that with devolution, there will be positions moving from the government of Canada to the government of Nunavut, which will also include some individuals who choose to move to Nunavut, which is welcome, as the Premier indicated. But I think there's a great opportunity for us to ramp up the training available for Inuit to take part in so that they're in a position to take on some of those responsibilities in terms of land administration.
Thank you very much.
I will say also that I'm very pleased that in addition to that, what is crucially important is the commitment for the financial resources every year until we're able to achieve Inuit representative workforce.
Prochaine question.
Julie Plourde de Radio-Canada. Monsieur Trudeau, en français, eh bien, j'aimerais évidemment vous entendre sur l'importance du transfert des responsabilités qui a été conclu avec le Nunavut, mais aussi qu'est-ce que ça va avoir comme impact sur les relations dans la Confédération entre le fédéral et les territoires, le Grand Nord.
C'est une grande étape qui devait être franchie et on est très content de la franchir. Ça donne la capacité au Nunavut, comme les deux autres territoires l'ont déjà, de mieux gérer pour eux-mêmes leurs ressources, leur territoire, leurs services aux citoyens. Évidemment, pendant longtemps, le gouvernement fédéral a porter cette responsabilité parce que Nunavut se développait en tant que territoire. Mais aujourd'hui, le travail qu'ont fait des générations de gens ici pendant de longues années pour arriver à ce moment, c'est une très grande chose. Et ça continue de démontrer la maturité de la gouvernance des territoires et on est très content de pouvoir travailler en partenariat avec Nunavut pour développer à l'interne les capacités de bien gérer leur propre territoire et leurs propres gens.
Merci. Oui, un autre dossier immigration avec M. Legault. Est-ce que les doléances en matière d'immigration de François Legault sont légitimes et vous engagez-vous à lui verser la somme de 470 millions de dollars qu'il réclame?
La réalité, c'est que pendant bien des années, le gouvernement du Québec et les Québécois eux-mêmes ont été extrêmement généreux et présents par rapport d'abord aux gens qui arrivaient par Roxham Road et présentement les gens qui arrivent de façon irrégulière via l'aéroport à Montréal. Nous avons été partenaires du gouvernement provincial et nous allons continuer d'être partenaires des gouvernements provinciaux sur ce dossier-là. Je sais que le ministre Leblanc, notre ministre d'Affaires intergouvernementales et de Sécurité publique, est en train d'être engagé directement avec la province sur ce dossier. Mais je peux dire que oui, on va être là pour partager le fardeau et la responsabilité de continuer d'être un pays qui accueille des gens de partout dans le monde, mais qui les intègre de façon réussie.
Next question.
Prime Minister Mural Jamal with Indigen News. I have a question for you and the Premier. I want to know what the process of actually changing the legislation to align with the devolution will look like moving forward.
Well, at the federal level, we will be repealing certain legislation. We will be amending other legislation. And as we do that, it'll be mirrored by the government of Nunavut that will be creating certain legislations and introducing and amending other pieces of legislation. So as the federal government transfers responsibilities and control to the government of Nunavut, it happens as seamlessly as possible. That's what the next 3 years are all about.
Absolutely. A lot of it's going to be mirroring the current legislation to allow and empower the ministers here. So there's a lot of work to repeal what the federal government legislations are and for us to enact them here in the territory. So we're very much looking forward to that moment and to ensure that they fit the environment that we're in as a consensus government and the importance that's going to have. So the next 3 years we'll be very busy looking at different legislation that we'll be enacting here right in Nunavut.
If I could just follow up, is there any legislation at this time that will be considered or amended or that you're looking forward to be considered in these changes moving forward?
Today's about celebrating that day. I think the real work's really starting from this point on. So it's really looking at all the necessary legislation that are there right now. So there's really no specific one. It will be a very clear process of taking on the different responsibilities currently held by the federal government. So the next 3 years will be crucial to ensure that we establish ourselves to succeed. When Nunavut succeeds, Canada succeeds, and I think it's important that we lay the foundation and ensure that the proper legislation that's going to be there is going to be there for us to be able to properly take on these different responsibilities.
This is, go ahead, sorry.
Je veux juste faire un suivi sur la question sur le Québec. Je suis extrêmement déçu de ce qu'on a vu de M. Poilievre aujourd'hui par rapport à son mépris pour les élus québécois. Ça fait plusieurs fois maintenant qu'il a démontré une condescendance et une ignorance par rapport à comment les choses fonctionnent entre le gouvernement fédéral et les provinces. Je pense qu'il est grand temps qu'il s'excuse pour son comportement et pour ce qu'il est en train de dire en s'attaquant contre des élus au Québec. Merci beaucoup tout le monde.